Welcome to Bigfoot
and the Bunny.
This is a couple's journey into the mysterious,
the unknown, and the paranormal.
I'm your host, Chris Carr.
And I'm your host, Kristen Johnson.
Together we are Bigfoot and the Bunny.
And we're live. Welcome to Bigfoot and the Bunny. Happy Saturday, folks.
Happy Saturday.
Hope you're doing well out there. It's great to be here again after being on with Dark Horse Paranormal Thursday, Friday night on Shadow Hunters or the Shadow Hour with Greg Koss. Thank you, Greg, for having us on. That was really fun. It's fun to be on the other side and to be interviewed because we give so many interviews and we're usually on the other side of the table, if you will.
Yes.
And that's always a good time. And we are working on some projects that, we've been slowly talking about and trying to pull things together, particularly with the documentary. And wow, when they say the words in development, it is definitely in development.
It's raw.
It is raw
right now.
raw dog.
That's it.
But it's coming along, and there should be some interesting developments with that. And also, what else? It was something.
Oh, I was laughing a little while ago because I was putting on mascara. My friends, if you ever put on mascara and out of nowhere you decide it just sneeze and your wet mascara goes and then you go, oh my God, I have to reapply everything. Yeah, I was already chasing my tail and all I could do is feel, see, and hear the universe laughing at me, knowing that I was running late.
Always. We are perpetually
really bizarre
doing that thing. No matter how much time we prep, it seems like we're just really frantic to go live and do this.
Nowhere.
But hey, it is what it is. It's a lot of fun. We love you guys, and we have an awesome guest once again for you guys today. And he does dream work, and just a little bit about dreams. Dreams are really kind of a cool thing, and a lot of people talk about dream interpretation, and we attribute a lot of things to dreams. And I wanted to just read a little bit of research from our good friend Terry A. Simonson, who was on our show recently in his book of research here, The Short History of Nearly Everything Paranormal. He brings up a parapsychology perspective of dreams that I thought was really cool and might be a good way to start this off. In one part of this book, he mentions the research of psychiatrist and psychoanalyst Montague Ullman and psychologist Stanley Krippner, who is just like a legend in parapsychology. Stanley Krippner, we love Stanley's work, where they did some research in I believe the 70s here in a laboratory environment. And I thought this was really fascinating, where the subjects, they would have two subjects. One would go to sleep and the other would try to influence the dreams of that person. And they would wait till the person that was sleeping was in a REM state and having a rapid eye movement. And the person who would be the sender of the image or scenario to the dreaming person would, before they wouldn't know what the picture was, they would take it out of an envelope. It was drawn randomly. In fact, they rolled dice to determine which picture. And they were things like paintings, like a Van Gogh painting or another piece of art, and they would try to telepathically send the image to the sleeping person, and the results were astounding. Something like 2/3 of the people in the lab had significant results, and they would say things like, it was the Van Gogh was one of the examples, and it's I forget the name of the painting, but it's very gray. It's a lot of dark colors, grays and blacks, and there's a church and a woman standing in front. And, the person would come out of it. They would wake the person after a couple of minutes of doing this while they were dreaming. And they could see the rapid eye movement. And she described it almost to a T. She's like, I was in a place and it was the church and everything was kind of gray. And there was a woman standing there and cobblestones and stuff like that. And just fantastic data. So it's interesting to note also that, when we dream or we start to fall asleep, this is like a point of vulnerability. As one of the things we talk about a lot on the show, hypnagogic states, and just in that moment of just slipping into the dream, seems to be where a lot of people experience things like shadow people, alien abductions, that sort of thing. So very interesting. Old hag syndrome, another example. But yeah, so without further ado, let me get to our guest, Machiel. I just asked him how to say it.
Yeah.
Machiel Klerk discusses how you can harness the power of your unconscious through dream incubation, an age-old technique that teaches you to access the hidden wisdom that can be used for personal development. He has a book out. It's called Dream Guidance, or it's actually available for pre-order. Connecting the Soul Through Dream Incubation. Machiel has published that book through Hay House Publishing Company. The book is, as I said, available for pre-order. He has given lectures and workshops in Europe, South Africa, North America about dreams and psychology. He also provides inspirational talks and workshops for companies on creativity, innovation, and leadership. He has written several articles on dreams and released a course on the Jung Platform, referencing Carl Jung.
Mm-hmm.
Machiel has vocationally been guided by dreams when he founded the Jung Society of Utah and the online organization, the Jung Platform, as a result of a nighttime dream. In appreciation of these contributions, he's received several awards from his local community. Let's bring him right on. Welcome, Machiel.
Welcome.
Thank you, Chris and Kristen. It's such a joy to be with the two of you.
It is our honor. Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
How did you get your start in dreams?
Well, it really started in my early 20s when I was in a dead end in my life. And I had not well dealt with the grief of losing my father at a young age. My culture and my family didn't know how to deal well with that. And somehow I had a lack of purpose, didn't know what to do. And I stumbled upon the works of Carl Jung. And reading that really opened me up to the world of dream, the other world. And I started understanding through dreams where I was in my life, but even more important, how I could navigate out of the trouble I found myself in. Mm-hmm. So that was the initial step that connected me to the world of dream and its inhabitants, that did lead me out of the trouble where I was in and brought me into the right kind of trouble, where I was struggling with bringing my vocation more into the world. So that is where it really started, and I can go on and on how it went from there. But let me just.
Did it feel like a sort of synchronicity that it came together that way?
I do think that at that moment in time, I was really ripe for this work, and that it came to me on the right time. That something in me was craving for a connection with the world of dream.
It's interesting that you're as interested as you are with Jung's work, and I think he coined that term synchronicity, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right. It's one of his contributions.
We love that word.
Do you think it stems? Do you think dreams stem from your unconscious, or do you think there can be external factors as well? I mentioned that research by Stanley Krippner and Ullman earlier when in the introduction, and I thought it was so interesting that a person's dreams could be influenced by another person.
Yeah, I do think that we are interconnected to each other. That's what Jung actually calls the collective unconscious. So in his idea, you have the personal unconscious and the collective unconscious. And what it appears to be that a dream is a environment or a world that you find yourself in. So you're in this world where you do things, you see the alligator, you run away, whatever happens in your dream. And what appears to be the case is that this world is created both through some of your thoughts and beliefs and intentions, but also that there is a non-personal aspect. You can meet other beings that might have something to share or tell, or literally get influenced by people that are trying to communicate something to you. So it's on a continuum, this world that you find yourself in, from creations of your thoughts to real other.
Fascinating. And dreams have intrigued people for the millennia. We spend like a good third of our time sleeping, having these dreams, not being able to recall them as well, but maybe being woken up. Sometimes they're vivid. Do you have any thoughts about, say, things like old hag syndrome or sleep paralysis?
Yeah, sleep paralysis is actually a phenomenon that is relatively harmless. This your body is paralyzed when you're in dreaming, because otherwise you would act out your dreams, and it would be really problematic if you have a partner, of course, that you sleep with. But the body doesn't, or your mind doesn't really make a difference between dreaming, imagination, and this reality. And so when you experience being chased by an alligator, you respond as if it's an alligator, and so your body goes paralyzed. And what happens if when you wake up, sometimes, and it's very infrequent, but sometimes your body is still paralyzed, and it takes anywhere between 30 seconds and 3 minutes before the body gets moving again. Some people freak out in that, but it's completely harmless.
It's a chemical reaction to try to keep the body still. Doesn't totally work for me, by the way. I'm a kicker. I'm one of those people that kicks in their sleep.
And sometimes he punches.
And punch. And yeah, I'm just a wonderful person to sleep with, aren't I?
No. Never mind.
Yes.
I guess good and bad's all.
Yes.
Yeah, you need a little bit more paralyzation.
Yeah, I do. I actually do. No, I think that's fascinating. Some of the events that happen in that sleep paralysis, though, can certainly be formidable. And there's a question whether it's you're dealing with some sort of entity or something that maybe is outside your subconscious, or if it's just something deep within your subconscious or superconscious that's coming out.
Yeah, that is of course a very relevant question. And if you take the dream as a kind of a continuum with elements that are personal to elements that are non-personal, then it begs the question: is this encounter with this figure that I experience in that in waking up or falling asleep, where do I have to place this figure? And that is difficult, of course, to say for sure. Oh, this is my own thoughts that take on a form, or this is a visitation by something else. If one can remain somewhat lucid or aware, one could ask this character, "Who are you? What brings you here?" But that is really difficult because most people either freak out or they experience something that they lose a sense of calmness in which they can engage with the figure. But if you're trained a little bit in that way, you could ask it a question, and if it answers in a very independent way, this is a non-self, or this is a real other. And if it mumbles a bit, then it's usually more your own an own thought form. And this is not unlike how lucid dreaming works. A dream in which you know that you are dreaming. You meet there. Because in those types of dreams, not all dream characters are created equal. So you have what Buddhist traditions call thought forms. Mm-hmm. And a thought form would be, let's say this is a dream, and I would think, gosh, I'm mumbling along, and my mom comes in and starts shaking her head. And then you would ask later on, well, what do you associate to your mom? And I would say, oh, mom is always negative or critical. I make something up here. But and then you would say, oh, this is criticalness enters the room. So my own thought takes on the form and shape of mom, because that represents criticalness closest. That's personal. If I would be lucid and I would ask this character a question, you don't get as coherent answers from them, and it's often a bit mumbling. The eyes are a little bit less clear than if you ask a real other question, like, who are you? What brings you here? Do you have anything to tell me? And they tell you something really surprising and often really insightful that you hadn't came up with. And then this character has some information that I didn't have, and so it can't be me.
Right. It might feel very external.
Yes.
Lucid dreaming is a fascinating area of study, and we've both had experiences in that, as well as astral projection. Do you draw a difference between astral projection and lucid dreaming? A distinction?
Yeah, there's a lot of overlap. I would say there are other worlds, and so these other worlds have a slightly different structure to them. What you see in astral projections is that it very often mimics this reality, but it is slightly different. So if I might be in an astral projection, and the door of my house might look a little bit different, or there's something not completely the same as this reality, where lucid dreaming appears to be more in the dream world. So it is almost like there are these different forms of reality coexisting next to each other, and you can access them through astral projection or lucid dreaming, or falling as just that hypnagogic state where you have a slightly different experience. That's how I would take a look at it.
That's a great answer. You mentioned people having dreams and meeting each other within the dreams. Does that fall within the realms of lucid dreaming or astral projection, or is it something else entirely?
No, I think that it can happen in astral projection and lucid dreaming, and actually even not lucid dreaming. They have done tests in the lucid dream world where people decided to meet up, and then would give a certain dream sign like this to the other, and then see if the other would the next day know what the dream sign was when they would meet up lucidly. So there have been examples where two lucid people would be able to report, oh, you did this, and oh, you did this. But there's also cases that the person you would be in the shared dream environment where one person was lucid and the other was not. And then this person that wasn't lucid would recall, oh, yeah, I remember you doing this. But
I recall something like crossing your arms, or, like a waving gesture.
Yeah.
And I just articulate that because this will become a podcast as well, and some people will just hear us. So do you think our dreams lend us guidance for day-to-day events?
Yes, I am a big believer of that, because it has done that to me, and actually to many people. There's literally thousands and thousands of examples of famous people, regular people that had dreams that were in some form helpful in their life. I've been reading Stephen King when I was reading my own book to how to write a book, and he says very often in dreams I find a plot for my book or what my character is doing. And the very famous song "Yesterday" from the Beatles was a tune that came to Paul McCartney in his sleep, in a dream, and he woke up with it in his head, and he was like, oh, what is this kind of a tune? Checked out if he had picked it up somewhere, and then it was a dream, a delivery in his dream, and then it became the most played song on U.S. radio in history. So dreams have been able to really help and guide people. And my own company, the Jung Platform, also came out of a nighttime dream. It was spontaneous, in which I had a dream, and I'm happy to tell it sooner or later. But it was a dream that gave me a suggestion to build a platform for Jung and post-Jungian psychology and shamanic psychology. And I've been working on that ever since with a lot of pleasure.
Fascinating. And certainly, we've had dreams that seem to be precognitive, or, some sort of influential thing. But I love those examples of Paul McCartney with "Yesterday" and having the song in his head and putting it out. And Stephen King, I've actually heard that too, that he's dreamt some of the plots of books.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
Where does that inspiration come from? Like the nature of inspiration in and of itself is sometimes
it's like a muse. Where's
fascinating. Yes, right. The muse. You know, a
It-
lot of musicians talk about that. I use the reference of Tori Amos talks about like fairies writing her songs, you know. And our latest record, she has a song called "Listening to the Trees," where she listened to the spirits of the trees to be the influence, and that's just sort of external entity influencing you in a dream state, especially. I find that fascinating.
Yes, and it's interesting also that you mentioned that, because the old idea is that we all have a muse or a spirit guide or a daimon or a genius, or in the African traditions called the divine twin. This kind of guide, spirit guide, that is both a guide as well as our talent that comes with us into this world, and that will help and guide us on our path, but also will provide us with our specific talent. So Paul McCartney gets a song. I got an idea to create a business and work on dreams, and another person knows maybe how to cook or how to be funny or how to interview people. And so you have this spirit guide that is with you, and it is also and that is not you. It's like in the Roman tradition, everyone has a genius. You are not a genius; you have a genius, and the goal is really to have that genius flow through you. And the prime residence of that genius is the world of dreams, the other world. And we need to bridge this world with the other world, so that we are being inspired to deliver our gift to community.
I love that, and maybe that is part of our reason for this existence on this kind of linear timeline, 3-dimensional world, is to listen to those muses, those guides, those spirit guides, to be our best self, to create things from from seemingly nothing, right? Yeah, I give that a lot of credence. Tell us a little about your platform, the Jung Platform.
Yeah, so the platform. Sorry, what was the last thing you said?
And the shamanic one, you mentioned shamanic work as well.
Yeah, the Jung Platform was born out of a nighttime dream. I will tell it very briefly. I was floating above the lake of Zurich, and I see Carl Jung's house in Küsnacht at the lake. And at the yard, there's a dock, and in the dream, he's building a concrete platform in the water that isn't there in this reality. And it's 20 by 20 yards, and he's working on it, rearranging some beams. Then he sits on a chair reading a book, and I'm watching all of this, and then it's almost like the whole dream comes to a standstill, and Jung and the platform disappear, and everything turns gray and black and white, and a voice behind me says, "Now you have to draw it, identical to how it was." And I think, I can't draw, but I have a pencil in my hand. I make a line. It's a little bit straight, and I think I can draw. And then I wake up. And I took that as a suggestion to build a platform for Jung and post-Jungian and Jung and psychologies like Jung. And that's not rooted in Jung itself. It builds further on Jung. But here in the West, he's one of the shamanic people that have developed a psychology that takes into account the other world, the world of dream, astral projections, the notion that there's more than just what I think I am, but there's a whole other world filled up with muses and figures, which he calls archetypes, and that you have to figure out how to relate to them and give expression to. And that is very similar to the classic shamanic idea around the world, where the basic notion is you have this world and the other world, the world of dream and all these other worlds coexisting, filled with ancestors and beings, and how do you live in accordance with them. And so those types of psychology is called depth psychology, and we create programs on helping people connect with who they are. And that ranges from some basic programs in Jungian psychology, from doing shadow work and synchronicity, as you mentioned, till programs with an African shaman, or on Rumi, or lucid dreaming, and Eastern traditions. So a broad range of programs that we try to make practical for the general public.
Oh, that is cool. Great. That's so cool. So you're offering that on your platform.
Yes.
Right? So a pathway to the connection to the dreams.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what is it about those things that I guess, is it like hypnosis? What kind of things could a person expect? You mentioned shamanic influence and quite a few things there. What is within the program? Is it something you listen to? Is it just a guidance, a narration, or?
Yeah, we have actually 150 programs, of which 50 lectures and about 100 courses taught by different teachers in the field of spirituality and psychology, that teach a class on what is synchronicity and how can we recognize it, and what might be the mechanism behind it, and especially how can I listen to the miraculous coincidences in my life that seem to conspire in order to help us move forward. And that is one of those programs. Another is on the shadow. That's a term that Jung developed, as you probably know, and has to do with that part of ourselves that is not conscious, and that we often project into the world, or where we relegate unwanted qualities, some not so great qualities, but also sometimes our talent, because we don't dare to own our talent. And if that's all in the shadow, and he wants to create this, as psychologist, that wholeness is the goal. So how do you bring your unconscious out of the shadow into your consciousness? And then there are practical programs for that.
Wow. No, I love this.
Yes.
This is so cool.
We both do.
What are some steps people can take to get in tune with their shadow and more in tune with their dreams, aside of maybe the program, just to try at home and then to see that there's something conclusive there and they should pursue it?
Yeah, great question. Well, in dreams appear that they are kind of respond to a certain interest. So if we go to bed and say, dream, I know we haven't been in touch for a while, but I would just love to remember it again and engage with it again. And tomorrow morning, I will write it down. That intent expressed before you go to bed, together with having a journal with a pen next to your bed when you wake up, will start sparking a dream recall. And usually within 1, 2, 3 days, you start having a little snippet or a longer dream, and then write it down. Or even if you have a feeling like, oh, I woke up with a knot in my stomach. All right, I woke up with a knot in my stomach, and then you write a little bit about it. It felt really pinchy, and it was cold, and then you continue to say to the dream, thank you, I'd love to have more dreams. And then dream recall starts happening. And writing it down is essential, because not only does your body go paralyzed, your short-term memory goes offline at night. And so you don't remember your dreams. Everyone has 2, 3, 4 hours of dreams, especially in those REM states you talked about. But even outside of it happens. But because your short-term memory doesn't work, you don't remember it. And expressing intent, and you can create more rituals around it, like lighting a candle and doing all kinds of things that increases the sense of relatedness to the world of dream and its inhabitants, and your openness will create dream recall. And dreams have a tendency to help you become you. All those examples of spontaneous, helpful dreams. And then for what I also wrote in my book that actually already came out this week. So it's
fantastic.
Yeah, yay. I'm happy with that. But you don't only have to wait for a spontaneous dream. This old technique of asking your dream a question before you go to bed in order to get a response, in order to get guidance, also triggers dream recall and actually triggers the help that is available in the dream world to come in.
That's awesome, and fully appreciate the idea of a dream journal. We've kept them, and you're absolutely right. And for the listeners to try that at home, be patient. I know, like, when I started them, and I go in fits and spurts with keeping a dream journal. I'm not great at it, but when I'm into it and I'm trying to remember my dreams, it takes a few days. Like, it's hard to remember to even like write in the journal, right? You wake up and then dreams are gone. Yeah. You're starting to get out of bed and like, oh yeah, there's the notebook right there.
What the
but
hell happened?
It gets better after a few days. Your mind does seem to retain that, and you remember, oh, let me write that down. And the clarity of those dreams gets better and better the more you do it. The book is mentioned connecting the soul through dream incubation. So when you say the self, are you saying that intention you're setting before you go to bed, you're talking to your soul?
You can imagine it in any way, but I would say yes, your soul, or the larger soul, the divine, the mystery, this phenomenon that goes under many names. And I think that if you express to it that you are interested in listening to it, and that you want to be in service of your soul, that it actually delights in that attitude and seems to be starting to provide dreams that are more clear, more interesting, and helping you become you. And that you becoming you is always is good for yourself, but it's also good for your environment. You become a kinder person, more compassionate. Your talent goes into the world that will benefit other people. And there seems to be something in the depths of our soul or psyche that wants to support us in doing that. And you see it even in shamanic traditions, like the Naskapi Indians who lived in the north of North America. They were dependent for their life, or because they were nomadic, on dreams by what they called the Great Spirit. And they noticed that if they listened to the dreams and followed up on the dreams, they would get more dreams and clearer dreams. Just like you mentioned, hey, if I start noticing the dream, in the beginning it's maybe a little bit fumbling. But if I continue to show, hey, I'm actually interested, very quickly, dreams become clearer, longer, and we become more open for the support that is there and ready to help us. And of course, there are many ways that you can engage with the support, but dreams is a great way to do that, and one that has been very good for my own life.
I'll bring up Debbie's comment again. She said she never remembers to write anything down, and I had mentioned that it takes discipline. So what you're saying really is you're trying to nurture a sort kind of a relationship with oneself.
Yeah,
build a relationship there.
Yeah, beautiful. If you would imagine that there is a compassionate counselor, friend, very wise, very old, 2 million, 10 million, 5 billion years old, knows about who you are and what you're about to become, and you have the ability to ask it the question, to be in relationship to it, then that gives also a kind of a way of imagining why you would start writing it down in the morning, because maybe this soul speaks in a language that is not as understandable as our day-to-day language, because it's more complex. It shows it's more subtle. But once you get the hang of it, you have the support of a 2 million a year old friend.
I love that.
Yeah, I love thinking about that.
Yes, we do that a lot. We think about that a lot.
I would think it would totally calm down any kind of inner turmoil and chaos in your life as well. I think in your bio, there's a mention of like a 5-step program people can do on their own. Does that include the intention, setting the intention and keeping the dream journal, and what else?
Yes. It's indeed the book that I wrote, Dream Guidance, details how you can ask your dream for guidance on almost any question that you have in your life that is really relevant to you. So if you would ask what did my neighbor eat for dinner, your dream is not so interested in answering that.
Mm-hmm.
But if you would be struggling with anxiety or sleep issues or depression, or you just want to be a kinder person, you want to grow your business that can help people, you can ask your dreams for support. And I studied all these traditions and worked with many people throughout the years, and I distillated a 5-step process, of which step 1 is identify the issue or the challenge, the problem that you want to ask a question for. And then 2, phrase and write the question, because the right way of asking defines also the outcome. And then 3, engage in a certain ritual that shows your intent that you would love an answer. So ritual is a very important component, because then you put a little bit of effort and awareness and focus and intention in the relationship. Step 4 is go to bed, sleep, dream. And then 5 is write down your dream, because otherwise you forget it, and work on it. Puzzle on it. Sometimes it's really clear, and sometimes you just need to carry it with you, because just that you set your intention and the energy that came back, maybe there's a synchronicity in the day, maybe you have an intuition, maybe you see the dream a little bit later. The answers are coming, and especially if you stick with it. That is the 5-step process, and
that's completely
awesome.
Fascinating.
Yes.
I love that you used the word ritual.
Mm.
That ritual is involved, because when you think of ritual, you think of communicating with either God or some sort of entity. There's almost a magical component to that. I think that's great. So ritual is a great word to use to get in the process of doing it. And I imagine it is something that is ingrained deep down in our subconscious, the idea of ritual.
Yes. I love how you say communicating with some being or the divine, because that is really, indeed, really what that ritual is. It is a way of opening up this reality, so that we can be with the divine or the muse or the fairy or the daimon, and how they can be of support. And ritual comes back in. I've studied traditions that do this form of dream guidance, dream incubation. It comes back in Islam and Hinduism and shamanism, and they all do ritual. And I've seen it's not so much which ritual you do, but more that you do a ritual. And you can make up the ritual as long as it is something that is heartfelt, that it might be lighting a candle, I might write a letter to the divine, I might make a drawing, I can dance, whatever you want to do. As long as you do something with the intention of it being a ritual, a moment that starts, reaches out to the divine, spend some time, show interest, create relationship, and then close it again. And that has a very favorable effect on the effectiveness of this technique. If you're sloppy with it, it works less well than if you put your heart in it.
Absolutely.
And that's where true intention comes from.
Exactly. No.
Yeah, absolutely. I see this in so many aspects of the things we talk about on our shows. It could be things like, exploring the paranormal and trying to communicate with spirits. It really comes down to like your intention. Like those communications are best when there's some sort of intent by the researcher or investigator or something like that. We've got a what they call a ghost box over here on the shelf that we had custom made, and it has a handle on it. It's was made by Katie Stafford, Supernatural Inc. Give you guys a plug. Fantastic thing to control the speed of it and that sort of stuff, and it's meant to be held.
Yes,
and
like
Katie,
like you're the antenna.
You need to hold this, put your intents, and you'll have better luck with it. So that's just one odd way to think about it, but certainly things like witchcraft, and you talk about
That's
shamanism.
what I was going to say earlier. Yes.
Yep. Right. Go ahead.
Well, about it's sounds exactly like witchcraft or any kind of divination, anything like that, sorcery, whatever you want to be called, labeled, whatever. That's exactly what we do. We put it out there.
Yeah, with a heartfelt expression
thing. Yes,
is the intention. So people listening, they should consider that. When we use these words intention, you want to have a dream about something in touch with your soul, as you're talking about, which is fascinating work. Put a heartfelt intention into it. Robert Honings mentions intention and true belief are vital.
Very, very true, Robert. And intention comes from the Latin word intendere, and it means reaching out to something. So an intention is really a reaching out to, let's say, the divine or the genius, the daimon, in which you try to establish this relationship, and it's a reaching out, and that a genuine reaching out appears one of the fundamental ingredients for divination, communication with spirits, or in this form, you could even see this method as a kind of a dream divination, in which you ask your dream a question for a specific problem that you have, and to provide an answer or healing or a creative solution to it.
I love that.
Right, and there was meditation as well. You can do that in meditation. I know we're talking about dreams, but
absolutely,
you go into the trance and
meditating is setting an intention, and you're clearing the mind to see what comes up.
Totally.
So like opening a door to one's soul, as you mentioned. And just one last bit about the paranormal and talking to the spirits, and spirits talking to you. I think it's also their intention that makes everything work. So we were talking about this last night. We were the guests on a different show. And we were talking about how they talk to us, and it doesn't seem to matter what the tools are. They can use anything, from the most simplistic thing like dowsing rods or pendulums to these complex, spirit seeking tools that cost $50 million online. They all work. It's like if they put the intention in, then all of a sudden the results happen as well. So it seems like a two-way communication.
Exactly.
So I love that you say you need to nurture that relationship with the soul, because you're talking some part of yourself, or maybe something even external,
consciousness and
subconscious and super conscious, and whatever those definitions exactly are, that it does seem to be external to our waking life.
Yes, very much so. And I also love how you mention that the other side wants to help, and that appears really the case. They're on standby, and almost any tradition has some form of the biblical saying, "Ask and you shall be given." And what I've learned in this technique, and also with divination technique, is for those techniques, it seems to be even more like ask better questions and you get better answers. And but the old ideas, there's support, and because there's free will, life will allow us to choose whatever we want. However, if we want support, then we need to reach out. Then we need to say, hey, this is an issue that I've been struggling with. I haven't figured it out, but I could need some help. And then that support is there that can help us. So especially proactively reaching out is a crucial element to elicit the help that's already on standby with us.
That works well. Yes, we understand that. I was just saying, in your bio, we saw something called the placebo.
Right, the placebo effect. And how does that play into to all this? Is it all possibly like a placebo effect, or do you feel that there's more there?
Well, the placebo is, of course, if you give a person an innate substance, or you do a sham surgery, and people get better. And this is well researched, and there's hard evidence. You give even in medication. Placebo works as well in depression, light forms of depression as antidepressants. And there are surgeries that have been done on knees that years later turned out to be sham surgeries, but they've been curing people. So then it gets the question, if it's not the innate substance or the surgery that causes the cure, then what does? And then we're back to, it's probably something as the ritual of engaging in a healing activity where I anticipate healing. I have a positive expectation. I have an intention to get healed. I start having a belief that I get healed. And those factors seem to trigger the healing response. And we can, of course, talk whether that healing response lives in the brain, or if there's also a component where the mystery force comes in, or the genius, or the psyche, or the soul. And I think healing occurs on multiple levels. So the soul and brain will support. But that is what I think that what the placebo does, and it's a way in which we petition the gods to help us, and
those gods may be our own selves or our own soul.
It might be our own soul. Yes.
Wow. So that's great. That's a great answer to that. Like, could this be a placebo effect? Well, the placebo effect is the effect.
Exactly.
Very cool. Very cool. Do you think ancestors play a role in this?
Well, I was born in South Africa, and so on a certain moment I had dreams of returning back to South Africa, which I did, and then I would visit because I'm also a mental health therapist. I would visit my colleagues of the indigenous tradition, the Sangomas, and I would sit with them, and their main world view or idea is that ancestors are on the other side, wanting to help. They have issues that haven't been lived out completely, that we inherit. And so we're not having only our own problem with maybe not speaking up or boundary setting or whatever problems we can have in life, but these are often generational. And the ancestors are looking over our shoulders to figure out how do we solve this, and wanting to give their 2 cents on how to solve some problems, because they continue to need to solve that. So ancestors seem to be a part of the inhabitants of the other world, of the world of dream, and deeply interested in helping our lives. So that's my first response to that question.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
We feel like that's part of it too. And that oftentimes they might be our spirit guides, or however we want to label them.
Yeah. Or they might be there could be other, a plethora of them.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
right. I mean, I do a thing when I do we'll say ritual. One of the things I do is call upon my ancestors, guardian spirits, guardian angels.
Yeah.
I
do a bunch of that. So we don't know.
That's right. We don't know. And I was telling you, we did I did a meditation recently. It was like a guided type meditation to talk to spirit guides. And the things that came back to me, one of them was what we would call an alien. When they're looking gray, it was very white with the big black almond shaped eyes. And the other one was like a nature spirit, and it's something I was following through the woods that was only, I don't know, yay tall, like a foot tall or something, just running. And very strange how that imagery came to me, because none of those things are what I expected. That's when I feel like it's the most valid, when you're doing those sort of things, when you get something you would never think of. I of course expected like relatives or something like that coming through, and then completely different in my mind. And it's very strange. So I don't know what the range is for spirit guides. I suspect it's a pretty broad band, spectrum of things that could be that.
I think so too. I think my limited understanding is that animals have been helpful, all kinds of ancestors and other beings that come in with some suggestion, and probably an unlimited range and variation of beings on the other side that can offer some support in some way or fashion.
Yeah,
I feel the same way though. It's like I said, a plethora.
A plethora.
Yeah, like that word today.
What do you think is the importance of, say, creativity of the individual in, I don't know, synchronicity within life, to getting more in touch with one's spiritual self? Of her creativity is also like a sort of doorway.
I think life is unbelievably creative, and is way more creative than our own simple mind can come up with. It comes with forms, shapes, forms of life that are truly amazing. And even take a murmuration of birds, the patterns that they make are phenomenal and super creative. And I think that same creative force lives in us and through us. And if we can be more attentive to what is in us in the moment and what tries to self-create, we start living a much more interesting creative life and figuring out creative responses to the individual problems and challenges that we have, than if we just impose with our mind and our will on it what we want to achieve. It does give up a little bit to say, what do I want, and move it more to what does my soul want. And my soul might go in a different direction than what I want. But we live in
right.
Yeah.
Separating the ego from your true will.
Yeah, exactly. And then we get in touch with our own psyche that is as creative as the murmuration of birds or complex mechanisms, or the phenomenon that created a tree also lives through us, and we get in touch with that. And I think what you so nicely put out is you can do that through meditation and setting an intention and all kinds of forms. And I've worked in my book out especially how dreams can help, and it can be very helpful, but there are other ways that put you in touch with this creative force that are equally valid and interesting and helpful. And in my life, dreams have been so unbelievably helpful that I was inclined to write a book about it and show my gratitude for that, what worked for me.
What is your take on psychedelics? Do you think that helps dreaming? I know people say they take it and they go to their higher selves and they see these, what do they call them? Aliens or whatever. And what do you think about that?
The mechanical elves.
That's it. The mechanical elves.
We're trying to go with that.
Thank you.
Certainly, like, people like Stanley Krippner have done work with psychoactive drugs, and
Rupert Sheldrake as well.
Absolutely. Give it validation. Do you feel that plays a role in dreams and maybe getting in touch with one's soul?
Yeah, I think that psychedelics is in a big way opening up this world to the other world to flow in. And the other world comes into this world, and then you start, like in ayahuasca, you start seeing the jaguar or whatever specific beings belong, especially to a certain plant or psychedelic environment. But it is opening up to these different other worlds. And I think that the world of dream is also an other world. And when we do a meditation or a ritual, that we also open up and in a small dose infuse this reality with the other world. And that the psychedelic opens up the other world in a massive way, by which it's almost like, instead of a spoon of the other world, it just is a bucket or a stream of the other world that comes in, a flood of the other world.
Yes.
that then at once puts you in touch with the other world, and that can be beautiful and it can be very frightening. and it has a lot of upside, and it's also some downside for some people. And
sure, not unlike dreams, really.
Not unlike dreams. The only thing with the dreams is because it's so much smaller that it is less likely to really break a person. That sometimes happens in the psychedelics, and or that it's almost like the door won't close well, and it continues to flood in. But for most people, that's not the case. But that's some of the downside.
I've heard that before.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah,
that's like a micro macro kind of thing, right?
So that's it.
The nightmare was just a micro. That the bad trip could be the macro of it.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I was just curious.
That's completely fascinating. Great, good question, Kristen.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
They reminded me because you had said the trees, and I was thinking about how the mycelium, the trees talk to each other through the mycelium, and then it got me thinking of
You're right. Mushrooms that seem
drugs
also emanate from,
mushrooms
from that same mycelium that's talking to the trees.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, in my technique of this asking your dream questions, I started in a certain moment also experimenting with, can I ask the tree in my yard if it has a message for me, or the mountain if it has anything that it wants to tell me? And I want to encourage people to test it for themselves. So the nice thing is, if you don't have to believe this, go and ask tree or river or even your pet, but nature seems to want to communicate with us, and can do that through the dreams. But it's also,
and that would be like a principle of shamanism or animism from indigenous cultures who attributed spirits to things like trees and mountains and the spirit of the wind, for example, or something like that. Yeah. So in your experience, do you find that they do have a voice, that they do exist as seemingly as an entity?
Yes, very much so. And that that we're interconnected to them. What we do to nature, we do to ourselves. And the web of life, we're part of it. And in my experience, when I asked the mountain if it has a message for me, it felt that we were abusing the mountain, and that mountain struggled with our use and abuse of it, and just taking out minerals that as if we treated it as an object and not as of a fellow being on planet Earth.
Right.
Through things like mining and that.
Yeah. Right.
It did not appreciate the mining.
It didn't.
No, that's fascinating. No, it would make sense too, right?
Yeah.
So yeah. I mean, consciousness itself seems to just live on so many different levels. It could be a plant. It certainly has a consciousness. A tree does. That's why we mentioned the mycelium and the way they communicate. They're able to differentiate between their young, and offspring and other trees. And science has showed us this. So what does that mean? That means that tree has a consciousness. And maybe it's not talking to you directly or growing a mouth and going, hey, how you doing?
Right.
But hi, Kristen. It is there in its own reality, its own consciousness, and we're interacting with it. And it goes, from almost a seemingly an atomic level, or maybe smaller than that, and just expounds in these patterns. And collectively we call things countries and the world, and then our solar system. Then
label them.
Yeah, we put these labels on them, but it's really the patterns of consciousness that we're seeing, right?
Yes. Very, very much in alignment with that.
And Anne-Marie Young like that?
Yes, she did. She always says, don't mess with our trees.
That's right. Don't mess with Mother Nature.
Very much so, Anne-Marie.
No, we couldn't agree with you more. So the book is out now. The book is available.
Yes.
You can get it at Barnes & Noble. We can pick it up at Amazon, of course. Oh, wait, one more comment out there. I'll throw it real fast. Ghost Flute says, even science has proven that nature is alive to some extent of the word. If you take that for granted, you could regret things you never understand. Exactly. And I think that is what we do as a species. Like, we are terrible at this.
We are.
Retaining these relationships with nature. We didn't start off that way. and nature was so crucial to our existence, but we've gotten so used to things like convenience and going to the store. People don't know how to survive if that store is closed. And we saw some of this during COVID as certain things were taken away from us. And, when we're locked down, and how people reacted is bizarre. Anne-Marie Jung says the trees are screaming the same thing.
Yeah.
And they may well be. And
most definitely.
They definitely don't want you to chop them down, I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
And make paper products, right? Make toilet paper that people would hoard during that same COVID.
God Christ.
Just to connect a few dots here. But your websites are jungplatform.com, machielklerk.com as well. The book, again, as I mentioned, is available through Amazon, Barnes & Noble now. Not as pre-order, as I put in the ticker incorrectly. I apologize. And is any other places you'd like people to get in touch with you? And
no, that is it. On my website, you can contact me as a therapist or a dream worker and speaker. And in my book, I lay out how this process works and give lots of examples. It's very practical, and I hope that people get connected to their dreams so that they can live a more fulfilling life. That would be my dream to come true, as if that would be the result of the book. And I hope that people have fun with it and just play and experiment and see what works for them.
Dream guidance, connecting to the soul through dream incubation. I love this, and I think living a more fulfilling life is better than winning the lottery. Because you can certainly have all the money in the world and live an unfulfilled life, be miserable. And there are so many stories of that.
Yeah.
Inner peace is so hard to come by. And this sounds like a great doorway to walk through to gain that. So thank you for joining us so much.
It's a wonderful interview.
This has been great.
We had a comment, one last comment.
Yeah.
It was very nice to meet all of you guys.
Yep. Thanks. Nice to meet you too.
Nice to meet you too. Thank you for joining us.
Discuss these things respectfully and not ignorantly. And that's right. And we don't propose to know everything. I think there are just so many topics out there we don't conclusively know for sure. Things like data and whatever. It's all data, but this is the experience. So we can talk about these experiences. And Machiel's experience with dreams sounds amazing. And I want to read this book.
Yes, we do.
So thank you so much for joining us. I hope our audience goes out there and checks you out. Check out these platforms and programs on Jung Platform and machielklerk.com. And we will see you guys next Thursday.
Yes, I was just going to say we cannot forget.
We do not want to forget this.
No.
We're doing a split show on Thursday with Anne-Marie Jung. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes.
It's going to be there along with Jeremy Cotter as a paranormal investigator. We're going to have a great night, and we'll see you guys then. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Have a great Saturday.
Thank you.